Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are going to be talking about setting up an enclosure for your ball python. Now, I love reptiles, as some of you may have been able to notice. I really do, especially ball pythons. There's something about them. There's so many things you can do with them. When you're into breeding, there's so many things you can do with the morphs. I mean, they are just some incredible animals. They're incredibly docile. They make for really good first reptiles. They're all around easy to take care of when you think about it, and setting things up for them is fairly simple. They need very few things just to thrive, and they are some of the most adaptable animals out there. This is Zeek. He is a male Mojave. He's right around 700 grams. He's a pretty big guy. He was a rescue that I got in, and he was in pretty bad shape. The original owner, she was no longer able to take care of him, and I drove an hour away and got him for 20 bucks. So she was just looking for a home for him. He had 2 stuck sheds. The original post that she made actually said he had been defanged. So that shows the amount of knowledge that was put into keeping him. And his enclosure was just not on point. It was absolutely horrid. But we've got him back to health, and he's doing very well. You can see his markings. He is a very pretty guy. Very pretty indeed. He's pretty docile. He's mostly tamed down. He wasn't when we first got him. He bit me probably 6 times within the first week that we got him. Trying to work with him and get his shed off, use a humidity hide, things like that. We're going to set him up a enclosure. It's time to clean his enclosure. I'm going to show you how to set up your enclosure if you're new or if you just want a different way of doing things. But this is all my opinion. I've been dealing with reptiles for more than 20 years, ball pythons especially, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I found that worked very well, and let's get started. Alright, I've got some of the basic supplies you're going to need when you first start out, minus the enclosure. Small table here. I've got Cypress mulch bedding. This is Thrive brand. It is PetSmart's in-house brand, and I found that this holds humidity very well at an affordable price. This bag was, I believe, $9.99. So this is a very good bedding. You can also use Reptibark and things like that. They're also very well. There are some that I would steer away from, but there aren't very many. Anything that has dyes, like if you could buy it at Lowe's, like their mulch, you don't want to use that because it has dyes and chemicals that could harm your reptile, and they could harbor mites. Alright, you're going to need a water dish. This is a big water dish, big enough for him to get in and soak if he wants to. It's decent sized. Okay. A hide. This is a corner hide. It goes in the corner. It's big enough for him to get in and curl up in. And the opening isn't a fully open area. It can hold humidity. You put a little moss ball in there, and it should be good to go. Okay, I've got some vegetation here. These are vines. I keep plenty of these around. Never know when I'm going to rescue an animal. This is Fluker brand. It has 2 suction cups. It comes with 2 of them, so you can kind of make a loop with them, or you can figure eight it, or you can do however you want across the back. You can put it on however you want to, and the 2 suction cups come in handy. There are different types of ivies. This is an English ivy, and this is a different ivy. They have another purple one. I just don't really like the look of that one, but Fluker has quite a few things that are pretty good for the reptiles. Also, you're going to need a thermometer and hygrometer. Don't come at me about the sticky little hygrometer and thermometer meters here. This is not sticky. It is Velcro, actually, and if your animal does decide he wants to wrap around this while it's on the side, he will pull the Velcro off and not the sticky part, and that is very important. This is the Zoom Med. It is the Creatures one. It is not the Reptile one. It's actually $1 cheaper for one, and for two, it glows in the dark. Not that that makes a difference. A lot of people say that these are not very accurate. I have found them to be fairly accurate. No thermometer or hygrometer that you get is going to be 100% accurate. They're all going to vary a little bit. I do not trust these for temperature. I also like to couple with a heat gun. Okay, so get yourself a heat gun and hygrometer thermometer duo. This will get you in the ballpark with humidity. Just keep an eye on your snake. Make sure he's shedding properly. When he goes into full blue, a couple days later he's going to clear up, and if it starts looking kind of scaly or has like a white tint to it, you want to up the humidity and then go based off what you see. And plus, just keep an eye on it. This is going to get you in the ballpark. It's not that big a deal. Another big thing is chlorhexidine. These come in 2% and 4% solutions. You just dilute it with water based on the instructions and get a small spray bottle, and that's what's in here is water and chlorhexidine. And again, this is Thrive brand. Their stuff is very affordable and it seems to be pretty good quality, so it's going to last a good long time. And that's your basic setup. That's basically what you need. Okay. Alright, another important thing with the chlorhexidine, you can clean with stuff like Simple Green. That's a good cleaner and is safe for your reptiles, but a cleaner isn't going to disinfect and a disinfectant isn't going to clean. So I would use either soap or water to clean the enclosure and then kind of douse it. You want to saturate it pretty good with the chlorhexidine. Let it sit for about 5 minutes and then rinse it with water. Rinse it completely and dry it with a clean towel, clean water, clean towel, and you should be good to go. Alright, let's move on to setting everything up. A couple of things I forgot to mention. You're going to need a thermostat and a heat mat as well, because ball pythons like belly heat. It helps their digestion. It's just a better way to heat, and you only want to you want a small, I'll get into this in just a second. You want to get a smaller heat mat just for safety reasons, and you only want to put it usually under their hot hide, and you want to just let them have a hot side and a cool side. And you want the hot side to be between about 88 and 90 degrees, and you want the cool side to be about 78 to 80 degrees. When it comes to choosing your heat mat, you want to stick with the 8 watt, the 6x8. That's just a general rule that I follow, because if your thermostat ever fails, those larger heat mats are going to kill your animal. It's going to get way too hot, and it's not a very good idea. With this one, at least it won't get as hot as quickly in the enclosure. And unlike other reptiles like colubrids, bull snakes, king snakes, milk snakes, things like that, they will actually move away from the heat source as opposed to sitting on it and balling up like a ball python will. They'll just ball up and try to stay hidden with that heat source, and they will end up burning themselves, and they could end up dying. That is why I choose to stay with the smaller mats. Now that you have your enclosure cleaned and sanitized, it's time to go ahead and install the heat mat here. Alright, pop it out of here. And most heat mats, no matter what brand you have, this is a Ikeo? Ikeo, not sure how to pronounce that. I've used quite a few of these. I keep these around. I have probably half dozen or so just lying in wait. They're affordable. They seem to last a long time. Once you have it out of the packaging, you have a sticky film that needs to be peeled off, as you can see there. It just pulls off the back, as you see. Okay, just pulls off the back there, and you're going to want to put it on the hot side of the enclosure. Okay, so let's go ahead and tilt this tank up here. It's going to go right on the bottom of the enclosure, and the hide usually sits right along here. And I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but this enclosure does have a little spot for the cord to come out right here on the corner. Has one on each side there. So we're going to go ahead and take off our backing here. And you want it to run to the back. You want to put it right where the hide usually sits. I probably won't use this little cutout. I'll probably just run it out here through the middle to get it behind the shelf. Make sure it's on there. Once it's on there, you can go ahead and sit it up. Like that. Okay, now that it is installed, we can go ahead and put in our water dish and substrate. One thing I forgot to mention really quick is you also get rubber feet usually when you buy one of these heat mats. The Zillas are very small. This brand, their feet are pretty big actually. So you can put it on the corners of the enclosure. You just peel them off just like that. They peel right off, and you just stick it to the bottom of the enclosure in the corners. As you can see, that 8-quart bag was plenty. Whenever it comes to hides, one more thing I wanted to mention with Zeek, I'm not going to be putting a cool side hide in here because he actually burrows under the water dish. This little domed area here is recessed, and he just goes in there and he likes it in there. I've tried putting another hide, he just goes under the water dish instead. He'll go back and forth, so it's pointless to put another hide in there. But the 8-quart bag did wonderfully, and you can actually see how moist this is. I mean, it holds that moisture too, as long as you'd follow a couple of protocols. Of course, with aquarium terrariums, they're not going to hold humidity as well because they have a screen top, but there's something you can do to bypass that issue, and it's very simple. Once you've got your mulch in, you're going to want about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, maybe up to 2 inches of substrate here. And as you can see, we've got our heating pad here. You can see the outline of it right there. And now the next step is to go ahead and hook up our thermostat lead. Okay, and most decent thermostats will have a suction cup, and what you're going to want to do is put it right on top. Okay, but you're going to want to leave a little bit of room. You're going to want to get that little moist so it'll stick. Okay. All the dust out of the way. You want to stick it kind of in the middle, maybe a little off center of the middle. Alright, and you're going to want to pull a little bit, about 1 inch of wire, because you want it to kind of stick up a little bit and go kind of up in the substrate, kind of in the middle layered in there. So you kind of start filling back in. Okay, fill back in. And once you get a little layer, you don't want to sit it down and then cover it up. So you want about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Then you just make a trail for the rest of your lead wire, and we just come over to the corner and fill that back in and bury it. That's the way I do it. Some people could tell you different. I mean, you're going to find several different opinions on how to do one thing. This is just the way that I found to maintain temperatures the best. And when you set your thermostats, you're going to go a little bit lower or a little bit higher. You want to double check your temperatures with a thermometer to make sure you're in the ballpark, but usually whenever you set your thermostat and it clicks on, it'll go up to that temperature and then it'll turn off, of course. But since it's on the bottom, heat's going to continue to rise, and you could go up 1 or 2 degrees before you start coming back down to your target. The next thing that's going to go into the enclosure is, of course, the hide. And this is a corner hide, so it's going to sit right in the corner. It's fairly easy, kind of safe space in the enclosure, easy to place. And that's going to be right over that thermostat, and it's going to be right over the heat mat. So we're going to get a good temperature reading for the inside of the hide. And just remember to double check everything, all your temperatures with a heat gun. Just to be on the safe side, make sure that you're maintaining your cool side and your hot side, and you should be good to go. Now the next thing we're going to be working with is the Fluker vines. These are 6 foot each, and they're just over $3 a piece. They're made out of external vinyl, so it's an outdoor material. It can get wet, it can get moist. It's not going to mold on you. Just before you use it, spray it down with some chlorhexidine and let it soak for a while, then rinse it very well and let it dry. Now getting the suction cups on can be a bit of a challenge because of the hook that they have there. But I found that once you get it into place, you can just use a pair of hemostats, a simple pair of hemostats that I use. This is the one I use to feed pinky mice to hatchlings. These work very well. You use a pair of pliers. I just use these because they're clean, and I know that they're clean, as opposed to pliers. Now when I set these up, go ahead and show you. I go ahead and stretch it completely out and find the 2 ends. There's the first end here. And I like to go in between that first little joint. And what's good about these is no matter how you bend these, they tend to stay that way. So you can kind of put it how you want. So once you have the first end, you can find the next end, which is right here. Alright, so once you've got the 2 ends, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to kind of twist it like this, the one end around the other, and overlap itself, just like that. Once you have it twisted together, you're going to take one of your suction cups, and you want it to be oriented to where the shiny part of the leaf is going to be facing toward you, toward the outside of the enclosure. So you want the suction cup face to go on the opposite side of that. Okay, you're going to want to put the little hook right there around the vine itself. Grab your hemostats or your pliers and just grasp it rather, and squeeze it closed. Just like that. And it's not going anywhere. Okay? The other thing I like to do with these for the other side, once you have it together on this end, you find the middle and you go probably 4 fingers widths back the other way, and that's where you're going to put the other one on, because that's going to allow you to orient both of them on the same side, and then you can just move the vine however you feel free. Another trick with these vines, if you'll notice, most of the leaves are oriented the same way and they're kind of crammed together. I like to push the bottom one down toward the branch itself and the center little area. So I push this down toward the bottom little cluster of leaves, and I turn the second area so that it's turned the opposite direction as the other, so you get kind of like a cross pattern, and then it goes back to this way. That gives it a more fuller look. So you push down right here and turn it like so. Tangle them if you have to. Then turn the other one the other direction. And that gives it a fuller look. Alright, it's all set up. It's ready for its finishing touches. The thermometer, hygrometer, the glow in the dark one. It's Velcro, like I was saying. It's safe. I've never had one pull the sticky portion off of the glass. You just peel the paper and stick it right on there. There it is, right in place. There you have it, guys. That's how you set up your enclosure, or at least how I do anyway. There are a couple of more things that I'm going to go over before I end the video. I did want you to get another look at Zeek here. He's a very friendly snake. Super good guy, easy to work with. Being a little shy now. Let's get a closer look at him. Some of his markings. He's very pretty. I really like him. He's got some lone dots there, along with the alien heads, such as there, and a couple there. Got some fading on his head. Not sure if you can see that. Very curious. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put him back in his enclosure, and I'm going to go over some helpful hints rather on keeping humidity in your enclosure. Okay, one of the things I wanted to go over is lighting, because I see a lot of people using the reptile lamps and heat lamps and things like that for lighting. Ball pythons really don't need that much light. They do need to have a day and night cycle, but generally the light coming in through the window is enough to do it. I do have lamps hanging over each of my enclosures just so I can turn on and look in for myself, but with the heat mats you really don't need another light. You don't need a light source at all. With the heat mats you can use a ceramic heating element which puts off no light, but as long as you keep your ambient temperatures good, you shouldn't even need that. In my snake room, I usually keep the ambient temperatures about 82 to 84 degrees. I do that with a radiant heater. It's a radiator heater, oil type, and it has a thermostat built in so that it cycles on and off, and it keeps it quite toasty in here year round. Now I have all the vents closed off for the house heating and cooling, and in the summertime I just usually watch the temperatures, and if they start to go up then I'll open the vents and let it cool down a little bit, or I'll have them open part way. It all depends on what the temperature is going to be that day, because I've pretty much got a method for how much I open the vents and things like that, but that just took some time to get into the flow of things. As far as humidity for your enclosure, the most vital thing that you can find you have at home. You don't need to mist, you don't need to fog, you don't need to spray your enclosure down. You should be able to maintain the humidity from the substrate that you have just with an old towel. This is a junk towel that's got stains on it. It hasn't been used to clean any car parts or motorcycle parts or anything like that. It's just an old towel that would probably be used to wash a car or be thrown out eventually. But you want to keep this moist. Keep it as a snake towel. Keep it moist and put it over the enclosure, and that is going to keep your humidity levels where they need to be, and it could exceed where they need to be. I've seen the humidity go up to 100%. with this, and you have to kind of peel it back a little bit off the screen to kind of let it go down a little bit. It all depends on where you are. Every area of the country is going to be different when it comes to the humidity needs. The snake owner in Texas isn't going to have the same humidity levels as a snake owner in Florida. Just like snake owners here in North Carolina aren't going to have the same humidity needs as owners in Wisconsin. It all depends on where you are. You just have to find out what works for you. Using the towel method works very, very well. Sometimes it works too well, like I said, and you may need to peel it back and kind of let the humidity out. So I'm going to show you really quick. What you want to do is you want to take your towel and you just fold it in half, just like that, and then fold it in half a second time, long ways. And what you end up with is a rectangle that is pretty much the same size as a 20 gallon long. And that's perfect. You wet it down, you wring it out as much as possible. You don't want it to be saturated, you just want it to be damp. So let's go ahead and do that and put it on the enclosure now. As you can see, just folding it over twice, long ways, puts it just exactly where it needs to be. It's perfect to cover the entire enclosure for a 20 long. And Zeek has found his way into his hot hide. He's in there somewhere. There he is. Not sure if you can see him on camera. There he is. So that's pretty much it for the humidity. This will keep it perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. You do want to change these towels out at least once, maybe twice a week. Just keep an eye on them. Make sure you keep them moist and open them up and fold them the other direction. You don't want to keep them closed and moist because then you get mildew and things like that, and that is never a good thing. Alright guys, these are the things that I found that work for me. They may or may not work for you. You may need to make some adjustments, but in general, these are going to get you where you need to be as far as your enclosure. Again, ball pythons are very versatile. They're very adaptable. They're kind of one of the easiest reptiles to take care of. Chameleons being one of the hardest. We'll go over that in another video. Ball pythons are fairly simple. They just need the few basic things. They need a heat source, they need water, and they need a place to feel secure. And if you want to add vegetation, I wouldn't say vegetation is that important. It makes them feel secure a little bit, but it's more for our perspective. It makes the enclosure look pretty. And I'm sure they get some benefit out of that too, but it is what it is. Ball pythons are super simple. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button, and since you're down there, you might as well subscribe, guys. In the future, I'm going to go over some really good information on treating sicknesses, mouth rot, scale rot, respiratory infections, some of which can be treated at home because I don't like overusing antibiotics. Some of the antibiotics can be harmful to your animals. Intramuscular injections. You give your ball python a dose of antibiotic at night. You wake up in the morning, it's got a big hole blown in the side of it because that's just one of the side effects if you do it wrong. We'll go over that as well. I hope you learned something. I hope you found this video informative. And I hope you had a good time, and I hope you enjoyed Zeek. I really like him. He's a good guy. He's kind of calmed down quite a bit since I brought him home. He doesn't really strike at me as much. He hasn't in quite some time, and I really like him. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.